Okay, I'll call this regular council meeting of 2014-05-18 to order at 1909 hours. And a motion for approval agenda with late additions. And that the late additions be added to item 9B. Moved by Councilor Leasley. Second by Councilor Leasley.
I would also like to add item 9D.
9D. Further discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Motion passes. And would council like to adopt the minutes as a block? Okay, moved by Councilor Hewitt, second by Councilor Leasley. Discussion, call the question. All in favor? Motion passes. No delegations. Business arising from the minutes. 4A, report from the administrator. On maize. Is this on maize?
No, that's just a side. That's just a side note on the
okay.
minutes. Sorry, mine's slow. Okay, the crew are currently finishing work on. They finished the work on the hot tap water connection for the new fire hall. And that was the last budgeted item from the village on the fire hall project in terms of financial contributions. Our offer to provide crew and machine time, if they're available, still stands. In the end, unexpected, unbudgeted requests will have to come to council for review. There still is one case with a little bit of confusion, and I'm hoping to keep that to a minimum over the next couple of months with Chief Swan. J.A. Humphreys have submitted their annual request for a $400 student bursary from the village. I have a recommendation there for council.
I'll move that recommendation.
Moved by Councilor Leathwood, second by Councilor Hewitt. Discussion. All in favor? Motion passes.
The Kaslo field treatment project is virtually at the end. Local tree services, I believe, are either done or absolutely at the death of it. Green wood chips have been made available to a number of communities as a consequence of that work. So it's been a project that's been very well executed by a number of local people in the area.
Okay. Councilor Lang, sorry.
Just a couple quick questions. Has the Forest Service been done any inspections on that property?
Not yet. We're at the point where we're reporting out and submitting, so we'll have that come next.
So they do tend to do an they will do an on-site at some point.
My understanding is they actually have to do it and submit it to UBCM.
Yeah, there's a report that we submit to UBCM, and from there we'll find out if they're going to do a site.
So we keep us posted as to when that's likely to take place.
Thank
you. Councilor Leathwood.
There does seem to be a bit of cleanup that still needs to be done right on Washington Street.
Yeah, no, I'm aware of that.
Is that it for your report then?
Yeah, I do have just a late recommendation that the community for the 4th of July 2nd should probably be rescheduled for the subsequent week. That's 2 months away, but I suspect there may not be any staff available for that evening.
That meeting
Moved by Councilor Hewitt, second by Councilor Leathwood. Discussion. Call the question. All in favor? Motion passes.
And just an observation, the City Hall fundraiser sales have been going reasonably well. I believe we're at 50 plus. It's not doing too bad, I think, Stephanie, but there's still plenty of tickets available. So we've only got till Thursday at 4 to more.
Excuse me.
Councilor Lang.
Thursday at 4 is when the ticket sales are cut off.
Yep.
Friday morning is unacceptable.
I would say so. I think we could maybe leave it till Friday morning.
The same. Thank you.
If you want to know what happens, we don't sell the ticket.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of, and that's gonna be my last kick at the Academy men's night, so,
Okay, then 4B.
The Regional District Building Inspection Service, the Manager's Development Services have recommended that the following resolution be adopted to address a number of administrative issues with respect to the RDCK Building Inspection Service number 2074. The proposed MOU you've got there is appended to my report. It's been reviewed and drafted in coordination with multiple village CAOs in the service. The recommendation is that Council adopt a non-enforcement policy on the Village of Kaslo Building Bylaw 1114/2011 as amended by May 30th, 2014, and further direct the CAO to sign the Building Inspection Service MOU that establishes a framework for collaboration and cooperation on delivery of the RDCK Building Inspection Service number 2074 as per RDCK Building Bylaw number 2200 as amended.
Moved by Councillor Lang, second by Councillor Leaflet. Discussion. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Well, thank you and the CAOs for putting that together. That was we've been working on that for 2 years now, I think. Is that not correct? If I remember right, it goes back.
We keep going back and forth.
Yeah, and this is what we wanted when we first started. So we finally got it. Okay, correspondence.
Unless you want to count the late items and item 90's correspondence, there's no decision requirement.
Okay. All right, communications for information 6, the circulation package.
I'll move that the circulation package be received.
Moved by Councillor Hewitt, second by Councillor Lang. Discussion. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Committee and staff reports. I've got committee action ITE.
Yeah, yes, the MS is not under it. If you just click on the report there, you get the recommendations, action items.
Is that all gravel sales related?
Yeah.
Okay. So, got all gravel sales related to the Ministry of Highways and Transportation Summer Paving Program, programming the area be used as revenue for additional village paving needs this year.
move it.
Moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Leaflet. Discussion.
So, this year we've got the Water Street paving, and so would this be, is this possibly some additional, like paving?
There are the Public Works Foreman has some additional paving needs in mind if the budget can stretch to it.
Further discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Motion passes. The new council tablet hardware required subsequent to the municipal elections be a budget item for 2015 expenses. Moved by Councillor Hewitt, seconded by Councillor Holland. Discussion. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes.
I'm going to absent myself for potential perceived conflicts.
The council support the Chamber of Commerce's Economic Development Coordinator position with a one-time funding of up to $8,000 from the RDCK Community Development Program. Moved by Councillor Lang. No seconder? Motion dies.
I'd like to move that we support the Chamber of Commerce Economic Development Coordinator position with a one-time funding of $5,000 with some conditions attached to it. One of which is that we appoint a village rep to the Chamber of Commerce, and that the Chamber needs to work with the Kootenai Lake Historical Society so that these services are not duplicated, because some of the services listed in the position are already being done at the Moynier.
Seconder?
For discussion.
Second by Councillor Holland for discussion.
So, there's another development that's going on in SED. I'm not sure what the impact might be on this, but the there's, North Community Services Society has stepped up, and they've got a plan to move forward on doing the business retention and expansion study, the baseline economic study, which is, we've been, for 2 years, been trying to pull that off. I'm not sure what kind of funding the village, they might ask the village for that. It looks pretty solid, but it's not determined yet, and the discussions are relatively early. We'll know at the meeting in June. North Cuban Lake's going to come back with a firm proposal around that, and I hope that sort of getting our ducks in a row, that getting the baseline information done and some of the business retention and expansion work done would be, I think, a slight priority with this. Like, potentially, this position would be supported by the data and the work that came out of those studies. So I'm not really sure what the balance of funds in the community development fund would be after this, or where we'd stand, or what part of Keep Lakes. And I guess, finally, is this time sensitive, or would we have, say, another 2 weeks next council part? June, the says it'll be on June, second Monday in June. So that's my only.
Well, we have a resolution. It's been moved and seconded. Or did you second it, Rob? I can't.
Yeah.
Okay, so moved and seconded.
Well, I seconded it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
discussion. So I think that substantially changes the resolution. But, you know.
Well, I didn't make any amendments.
No, you
No.
did not amend it.
I mean, there's no substantial.
Okay. So what was the original?
Well,
Councillor Leafwood moved.
the failed motion was that council
Yeah.
support the Chamber of Commerce's economic development coordinator position
Yeah.
of one-time funding of up to 8,000 from the RDCK Community Development Program. The new motion changes that figure to 5,000 and adds the conditions of a village representative and coordination with the Historic Society.
Councillor Lang.
Okay, further to Councillor Holmes' comments, the original request was for 15, and then in a subsequent, I think it was a W meeting, we reduced it to 8, because there was a potential for some other request for funding coming across our table. So there is at least $7,000 in that fund and allocated at this point in time. I prefer that they got the 8,000, but if 5,000 is all that council sees fit to grant at this point in time, I will support that.
Further discussion.
So potentially,
Councillor Hall.
yeah, potentially the amount of money left in the fund after a 5,000 allocation, do we know that?
I can't rule that off to you.
Okay.
Either in the 5 or the 8 scenario, there is still a little bit of money left.
I guess, you know, I'm a little bit hesitant. I mean, I agree with in principle where we're going with this, but I'm a little bit hesitant that we're like, this is a late occurring project versus the other projects that's been long standing on our books and kind of on our radar for a couple of years. I really prefer to see that go forward. Is there any chance that I could ask that this be referred to the June 10th meeting after SEDS meets on the 9th?
Councillor Leafwood.
I think the chamber needs a response, and they did request quite a while ago. It's taken us quite a while to come to this figure. I think they do need some closure to this. And I think your initiative that you're talking about is good too, but I think this is a good initiative as well. And I think they do need to be able to move forward with it.
Further discussion? Ready for the question? Call the question. All in favor? Motion passes. Opposed? So on the appointment, did that happen now? Because that was part of the motion.
Well, you could select a member of council to be the representative for the appointment. Yes.
It's not critical. Like, I want to check with Nelson on this.
We passed the resolution.
Yeah.
So
All you're doing is designated a member of council who's the liaison, or not necessarily a spokesman. So you can't put someone on the board.
Oh, liaison person.
Yeah.
Just like we've had in the past.
Okay, well, I'm appointing Councillor Lang.
Well, you don't make the appointment.
Huh?
You don't make the appointment.
Well, was that one of the ones I can't make?
Well, it's not a standing committee. You can make a recommendation, but the appointment's made by council.
Okay, well, I'll make a recommendation that Councillor Lang be the liaison person to the chamber.
Okay. I'll second.
So discussion? Right now, we've got one person who's, I'm not sure, does that, what's the conflict of interest around that? Would Councillor Lang be in a, as a liaison, who would be in a conflict of interest? The way Susan used it is Councillor Lang?
It's a liaison. It's not an appointment to the board.
Okay.
Councillor Luther?
Washington.
Well, Councillor Hughes is a board member, isn't she?
She's a
So
standing
can
member.
you can't make the representative of the board member.
I wouldn't
You would have to.
I wouldn't-
Right, that's why Councillor Lang.
Okay. That's good. That was my question.
Further discussion? Follow question? All in favor? Motion passes. Oh, time to, okay. I'm just, where are we at here? New council, council.
2,000 investment to the golf course.
Okay. That the question of a $2,000 investment in a new golf course trail be referred to a future budget meeting. Moved by Councillor Lang, second by Councillor Leithwood. Discussion, call a question, all in favor, motion passes. The Village of Castle support the following resolution. This was brought forward by Councillor Hall. Was it not?
It was around town.
It came out of the committee.
Yeah. I'll move supporting the social policy framework resolution.
Seconder. Second by Councillor Lang. Discussion. Call a question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Is this going to be forwarded, sent to somebody? What are we going to do with this?
We'll send it was board voice, I believe, and it will be, I'll copy it to North Kootenay Lake Community Services as well.
Okay.
Probably KLPT.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Staff report. Temporary use.
Okay, so this one's going to take a few minutes because there's a little bit on that. There is a resolution in there for you, but it's quite involved, and I'll just introduce the topic because I think SEDS has had more discussion about this than the council itself. The applicant, Mr. Pfeiffer, is requesting the approval of a temporary use permit to allow the properties listed to be used as a cheetah conservation sanctuary or zoo. The project's commonly referred to as the Run Cheetah Run Conservation Programme. Under the Local Government Act, the municipality is granted authority under Section 920.2 and 921 of Part 26 to issue a temporary use permit to allow a use of land on a temporary basis that is not otherwise zoned for such a use. In issuing a temporary use permit, the local government can specify conditions under which the temporary use is to be carried out. We haven't had too many of these in Castle. Mr. Pfeiffer has for some years expressed a desire to operate his proposed cheetah conservation programme at his property in Castle, promoting conservation of his two animals. The Sustainable Economic Development Committee and Council have supported this initiative in principle to this point. They're currently caring for their animals in Innisfail, Alberta. An animal sanctuary or zoo is not a permitted use within the municipality under any OCP policy or land use bylaws at the moment. Zoos can be found as a permitted use in some other jurisdictions within the neighbourhood commercial C3 zone, but this is by no means a typical permitted use and would not necessarily be there to facilitate the presence of a controlled alien species. The official community plan and zoning bylaws would both have to be amended to make the proposal a long-term permitted use within the municipality and at the subject properties. The R1 single and two-family residential zoning, which applies to the subject properties, permits a variety of commercial uses within the regulations pertaining to home occupations. That's Bylaw 1130, section 2.8. However, this proposal does not conform to these regulations. While R1 zoning can be seen as complementary to P1, park recreational institution in a neighbourhood setting, a neighbourhood commercial C3 use of this nature, even if it were rezoned that way and the permitted use is questionable in terms of it being a positive application of land use planning principles. The reason for this is that the enclosure will be directly across the road from J.B. Humphreys School. The Cane House, located on one of the subject properties, is not currently on the Community Heritage Registry, nor has it been designated a heritage property by bylaw. The proponent therefore has flexibility with respect to proposed alterations to the appearance of the subject properties if he so desires. The role of council in this matter is to deal purely with the land use matter in front of them, as all animal management and regulatory matters pertaining to the cheetahs as an alien species are in the domain of the province of British Columbia and the federal government where applicable. The Conservation Officer Service has provided staff with a copy of their last correspondence with Mr. Pfeiffer, dated August 14, 2011, indicating the need to comply with Schedule 1 of the Controlled Alien Species Regulation 94/2009. A permit under that regulation will be required for him to bring the cheetahs into British Columbia. He had recently applied for one. The condition of monetary security to ensure compliance with the other conditions of the permit could be added to the permit if council feel that that is advisable in this case. In its preparation of the draft temporary use permit, as it relates to the subject property, and in acknowledgement that council has already declared support in principle for the proposed activity in the local area, I have included a number of conditions which are designed to address such matters as the appropriate siting, building, appearance of structures, the security of the animal enclosure, the need to remain in compliance with other village bylaws, and compliance with other senior government regulations. Public participation. Notice of the proposed temporary use permit and its consideration by council at its next scheduled meeting on May 27th will be mailed to the owners and occupiers of property in accordance with the requirements of the Local Government Act and our Development Procedures Bylaw. The notice is included on page 5 of your report. So you've got a big recommendation there, and if you wish to proceed with this, that is what I would recommend.
Councillor,
In order to amend the OCP, what would be the process to do that?
Well, it's the usual public process of adding up. You would have to do the public process of adding a policy to the OCP to make zoos a land use there, and you would subsequently amend the zoning bylaw.
But I'm just like as a timeline, because I mean it took us quite a few months to do the original OCP.
Yeah.
To make an amendment, it wouldn't be that long of a time commitment, but it would be.
No, but if you do the temporary use permit, you don't need to do that. You need 3 years to do that.
Oh.
the other thing is that we did say that when we had a series of amendments to the OCP, we would then go through the whole process. We didn't put a time limit on that, how many we would want to have. Maybe that's something we can discuss, but the idea was to get away from the one-offs and look on an annual basis as to what amendments might be required in the OCP and the time frame for it.
It's also very important for the benefit of the public that they understand that a temporary use permit is not a mechanism to circumvent the zoning bylaw or regulation. And that's why very often you see a security of some kind being provided along with a temporary use permit if it's approved, because you need some enforcement capacity to have structures taken down or the use reverted back after the 3 or 6 year period.
So the only implication for it being a certain distance from a school is what's cited in here. There's no safety. You know, I mean, we recently had the issue with burning close to a hospital, so there's no other implications for this type of.
In terms of land use, no.
No.
Yeah, the Conservation Service are dealing with the other side of it. School District 8 will have an opportunity to provide feedback to the municipality on this subject during the public participation period. I assume the risk managers will leave.
Councillor Lane.
I just want to know how long a period is the public consultation period? How long is it? What other timelines attached?
It's basically from tomorrow until your next meeting. But if I want some formal feedback, there's some very tight restrictions under the Local Government Act, in terms of how many days and so on. So there's basically a fortnight. It will be advertised in the newspaper. We'll make sure it's up on Facebook as well, and online with the Pennywise, and it will be available in the office for people to review.
Councillor Lane.
I'd like to move the recommendation.
Is there a second? Councillor Hewitt. Seconds. Further discussion. Call the
So can
question, please.
Just for the benefit of the
I would
public.
I would recommend that.
Yeah, that the recommendation that we've just moved is that staff initiate a public consultation period for a temporary use permit, TUP-01-2014, with the following conditions proposed: that siting and construction of any buildings and structures on the land shall comply with the requirements of the BC Building Code and applicable building bylaws and regulations. The property modifications are made in the spirit of the official community plan with respect to applicable heritage, form, and character policies. And if related activities move in any commercial direction, the permittee will immediately apply for a business license. The enclosure or compound must be self-contained in a manner that prevents the escape of wild animals, animal waste, and animal feed. The enclosure or compound and activities therein must not result in any provisions of the Village of Kaslo Animal Attractants Regulation Bylaw 1070/2008 as amended being broken. The enclosure or compound and activities therein must not result in any provisions of the Village of Kaslo Noise Abatement Bylaw 1079 from 2008 as amended being broken. Private or public parking at the property must be implemented in accordance with the provisions of Village of Kaslo Street and Traffic Bylaw 1120 from 2012 as amended, and lands described as Block 11, District Lot 2008 Plan, NEP 559, Parcel H, DD, anyhow, will be legally consolidated by the permittee within 1 year of this permit's execution, and then temporary use permit PUP-01-2014 shall expire 3 years after the date of its approval by resolution of the Council of the Village of Kaslo, and the sanctuary or zoo must be removed from the land in its entirety to conform with R1 residential zoning unless the necessary amendments to long-term land use regulations that would make it a permitted use have been made by the village, and any other requirements of the provincial government or federal government that may be applicable, including but not limited to the conditions associated with the Controlled Avian Species Regulation, BC Regulation 94/2009, with respect to this project.
Did you get all that?
And public feedback will be provided for council review in the May 27th regular meeting agenda.
Further discussion. Call the question. All in favor? Motion passes. Okay, and we're at
Get here early for a seat.
7B. We're on 7B. Okay. 7C, Regional District Director's Report.
I believe that everything was reported at the last meeting.
And D, the PEP minutes.
I'll move the PEP minutes of the meeting now 2014 of the 03/26 be received.
Seconder. Second by Councilor Lamb, moved by Councilor Newton. Discussion, call the question, all in favor, motion passes.
I'll move that the report for April 2014 from Kaslo District Community Forest Society be received.
Second.
Second by Councilor, moved by Councilor Lang, seconded by Councilor Hewitt. Discussion, call the question, all in favor, motion passes. Now, who gives out the recreation grants? Did you guys know, don't you?
Councillor Lang and I are on that.
Would you like to let the following recreation grants be allocated for the spring-summer 2014 round?
Okay, Castle Trailblazers, $400. Maydays Car Show, $250. KLHS Pirate Day, $225. Guitar Fest, $150. North Kootenai Lake Arts and Heritage Council, $225. Castle Concert Society, $225. North Kootenai Lake Community Services Society, $250. Kootenai Sufferfest, $250. Castle Youth Soccer, $250. Canada Festival Society, $250. Coors Bike Club, $250. JVH Ultimate Frisbee, $250. And the Kootenai Castle District Public Library, $125.
Moved by Councilor Leathwood,
Sorry.
second by Councilor Hall. Discussion.
I just wanted to check with staff whether the other two recommendations that the committee had, they may have just been dealt with by staff. And one, it was just in regard to the withdrawal of one application. And
Ready for the question? All in favor? Motion passes. Verbal reports. Councilor Leathwood.
Other than the City Hall fundraiser on Friday, get your tickets, it's going to be great.
Just a question, it was set up time, did you say there was, I might be available on Friday?
Yeah, well, if you come anywhere between 3 and 3:30.
Okay, all right. That's fine. Councilor Lang?
Nothing to report.
Councilor Holland? Councilor Hewitt? Well, I can report two meetings. One was held in Christina Lake, Sideback, mobilizing local investment capital in rural communities. We had two speakers from Nova Scotia and two speakers from Alberta who have been down this road and actually been able to raise millions of dollars in their communities for economic development. This will all be on the Sideback website, and it'll be in my binder downstairs. So it was a very interesting. They had over 60 people from the community of Christina Lake show up for the public part of the meeting to listen to these presenters, and it was quite inspirational. The second one was today in Castlegar for the state of, what is it? Get to know your digital basin, and that was quite interesting. I don't know how far, Neil, you got down the line with this, but I think that we're going to end up with data to help us make better decisions about what we've got to offer potential individuals who want to invest in our community, kind of building on this business retention and expansion. So I found, have you looked at the tool at all? Or yeah, it's really complicated, and I passed on to those people. For the average person to sit down with that tool and try and find their way through is going to be a real challenge. So what they're going to try and do is break it down into simpler pieces. Then they had the land inventory session, which was 2 hours on issues around how they're going to get this land inventory available to investors. And it was quite interesting because they ran into a whole series of problems. One big problem being they don't pick up unzoned land. So in RDCK, Area D, none of it's zoned. So if there's potential land out there for economic development, at this point in time, they're struggling to try to find a way to get that into this tool. So as you all know, I'm computer illiterate challenged here. So I mean, it was I think it's a value, and they're trying hard to make the public aware, or practitioners aware. So I think in the end analysis, when they work the bugs out of it, it's going to be a value to the committee. That's it. And on to the bylaws. Bylaw 115, 5-year financial plan review.
I'll move to adopt bylaw 115.5 year financial plan bylaw.
Moved by Council Leafwood, second by Council Hewitt. Discussion, call the question, all in favor, motion passes.
I'll move to adopt bylaw 1152, tax rates 2014 bylaw.
Second.
Moved by Council Hewitt, second by Council Leafwood. Discussion, call the question, all in favor, motion passes.
I'll move to adopt bylaw 1153, sewer parcel tax bylaw.
Moved by Council Leafwood, second by Councilor Holland. Discussion, call the question, all in favor, motion passes.
I'll move to adoption of bylaw 1154, water parcel tax bylaw.
Second by Councilor Hewitt. Moved by Councilor Hewitt. Discussion, call the question, all in favor, motion passes. Well, that's it for bylaws. New business. The best motorcycle school, best for use in the property.
I have a report there for council on this topic. I would have liked a little bit more information, but you have some information in front of you. Mr. Greg Dixon, Kootenai wishes to operate his business on the landing apron at Castle Aerodrome on Saturdays this summer. He's requested a license of occupation agreement. The new prospective Castle Airport Development Corporation, I have that term a little out, supports the request, but this does not necessarily reflect the views of all hangar owners. I was unable to get a confirmation that all 3 hangar owners were okay with the proposal. I know that at least one is. Even though the vehicles will not be on the runway, it's a little surprising that they support for this in the hypothetical peak of the aviation season. However, Mr. Dixon has indicated willingness to put in place the necessary general liability policies with the village of Castle as an additional named insured. The village will be responsible for putting in place no-time warnings, so the schedule of lessons must be very clearly communicated to staff well in advance. Mr. Dixon requires a quick decision so that he can make alternative arrangements if need be. So if council wishes to support the initiative, my recommendation is that staff draft the license of occupation conditional on the production of satisfactory general liability insurance with the village as an additional named insured, and the consent of all hangar owners for Kootenai Best Bike School to utilise the apron at Castle Aerodrome on a confirmed summer schedule.
I think this is a great idea. I don't think the airport is the right location. I think it really opens the village up to quite a bit of potential liability, and there is another alternative for this. I just don't feel that
You're
the
speaking
airport is
against
right.
the...
Yes, I am.
Would you have a motion?
No, but you know.
Councilor Lang.
I'd like to make a motion that Mr. Dixon be advised that the airport is not available for his motorcycle school, but that the arena parking lot would be. And the only question I have in relationship to that is who gives them the right to use the arena parking lot? We do, or the arena board does?
I think it would be an alternative, a possible alternative. I don't think we can say yes or no definitively.
Well, I had an opportunity to meet with the CE coordinator of Selkirk College, and I was advised by her that there has been motorcycle training sessions held on the arena parking lot in the past. So clearly it's a viable option.
So you're
Where did
making,
my motion go while there, Neil?
It was Mr. Dixon be advised the airport was not available, but that the arena parking lot likely would be. I would suggest referring it to the arena board.
Okay, and then, okay, so that, take away the sentence would likely be available, and simply that he might consider approaching the arena board.
is there a second? Second by Councilor Leeper. Discussion. Call the question. All in favor? Motion passes. On to 9B, Landmark Bakery, patio request.
Yeah, I have a staff report there for you on this as well. You also have 4 pieces of correspondence as late items from some other businesses in the community for your consideration. Mr. Abbey is requesting that Council permit the construction of a patio on Front Street, which would occupy the parking space directly in front of the Landmark Bakery. In terms of relevant bylaws, there are 2 provisions within the traffic bylaw 1120 that would probably need to be amended or clarified, particularly under numbers 22 and 26, basically parking times, and that it's unlawful for any person to park, occupy, or use any portion of the roadway for the purpose of advertising, selling, or offering for sale any vehicle. Those would be relatively minor changes if Council wanted us to proceed with them. Mr. Abbey wants to have a patio in place this season, or at the very least try and facilitate the introduction of policies and application processes that make parking space patios in the commercial court possible. Council already allows food service establishments to place some seating on the sidewalk outside of their premises. The City of Nelson has provided on request all the necessary copies of their policy with respect to these patios, as it was the subject of some discussion when this was first raised. A village or council policy along the same lines could very easily be adapted, but it would have to be created addressing the following issues. Design controls. Nelson's are within their official community plan. Application and annual fee for loss of parking space to the municipality. Annual inspection fee for the building inspector, which is rolled into the annual fee. Financial charge authorization bylaw or policy associated with such permit. A refundable deposit or bond to incentivize license of occupation permit compliance. Duration of the license of occupation. It's not recommended, from my perspective, that one such pilot arrangement must be drawn up on a trial basis, as this action would be unfair to other food vendors on Front Street. If such a policy is to be pursued, it should be created with all Front Street businesses in mind. Certain businesses would be unable to have a patio regardless, as there are minimum recommended distances for stop signs and intersections and areas of poor visibility. There's also a risk that in tandem with a paved Water Street, vehicular traffic could begin to bypass Front Street during the high season to avoid street and parking congestion. That would have to be monitored because, as you may recall, there were different options to ease traffic flow on Water Street. We might have to, in the future, look at going back to the one-way proposal if that became an issue. So again, it would be if multiple businesses were starting to do that. Staff time devoted to the initiative if approved would certainly be at the loss of existing files at this point in time. It would take a little bit of work, but it's not insurmountable. So my recommendation is, if you wish to proceed with commercial sidewalk patio permitting, the following is recommended: that staff develop a draft outdoor cafes and use of sidewalk and parking spaces policy for the village in conjunction with any amended or draft bylaws as required, aiming for programme implementation later in 2014.
Councillor Lang.
Can I get a definition of later in 2014?
It would be conceivable that we could have policies in place and put together and approved by council. A lot of bylaw changes aren't required within a couple of months. But it would be more with if we're to have an application process available to all of Front Street, for us to review with criteria. It's probably with the 2015 season in mind, but we could have it up and running. However, if you want to try a trial example, you certainly can. I just wouldn't recommend it.
Councillor Lane.
Okay, I've given this quite a bit of thought, and really there's about 3 issues as it relates to the business owners, and basically, well, there's 4 issues actually. One is the fact that there be a fee attached. Secondly, there would be the patio would have to conform to workman's comp or WCB regulations. There'd be liability insurance requirements to cover off in the event there was an accident of some description. And fourthly, which was brought up to me one of the restaurant owners in town, there would probably be a requirement for additional staff. Now, when you add all these costs together, all of a sudden it becomes a little bit of a maybe not scenario for a lot of the businesses in town. That's the sense I'm getting. You know, like, I'd like to support this in principle, but the reality is if we push this thing ahead, we may find, once the business has a chance to actually go through what's required and do a financial analysis, when you consider that these platforms or patios will likely disappear after Labor Day or the very latest the end of September, it may not be financially viable for them. But that's their decision to make, not ours. But this sort of entered in my thinking. So I guess at the end of the day, I have to go with the CAO's recommendation and that we do this properly rather than rush into it with a pilot project per se, and that it should be, if we're going to go down this road, it should be well thought out and all the T's crossed and the I's dotted, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Councillor Weasley.
Again, I support, I think this is a great initiative as well. But again, I don't think Front Street is the right place. I think Water Street, which would be much better. I think the other issue is that where do we draw the line as to what business can use a parking space for? In the last 2 years, we've had a request for the taxi to have a parking spot. We had a request for a bike rack, and now we're having a request for a patio. So where do you draw the line, and how do you choose what can and can't be used for parking space? I mean, every business could conceivably come up with a justifiable reason for us to give them a parking space. And then we don't really have a Front Street anymore that seniors can park in. So I think this is a great initiative for Water Street.
Councillor Hall.
So there's a lot of data out there that's available around what you do when you make your downtown core more pedestrian friendly. It increases business. There are a lot of, I've talked to some businesses on Front Street that are very concerned that they lose parking, they lose business. That's not supported in the data. So there's got some education process around the downtown business force that they understand that. I don't think we can open this, because it is one block long. It doesn't make much sense to me to open this up willy-nilly to all takers. That wouldn't work. But some sort of restricting, maybe specifying there could be 2 or 3 lots, possibly some kind of lottery or some kind of turn-on things. Consideration that maybe these outdoor platforms are actually owned by the village, so that so there's no big investment on the part of somebody that goes out and invests a lot of money building one of these things, and then they don't win the lottery the following year, they'd be out that. But if it's more of a transitory, not a big cost of business establishment, because I think it does improve the downtown core. It slows traffic down. People spend more time on Front Street. It makes it more attractive. Your tourists are going to stop. More people are going to spend more time in there. You've got these amenity areas. You probably remember we had a nice little amenity area down there across from the tree house where there's some benches there, but that was on private property, and the owner was not happy with doing that anymore. But that was a prime place where people gathered and sat and chatted and met each other and all that stuff. So again, in principle, I totally support this. I do see there's a lot of things. A couple things that have to happen. We'd have to consult all the business on Front Street, get them all talking about it, informed. I think we'd have to put a limit on the number of spots that we'd be willing to designate. We'd have to come up with some kind of way where businesses would all have the opportunity, either they bid on them, or they, or a lottery, one or the other. And there would be a revenue cost to, or a revenue stream to the village for allowing lots to happen. How to navigate through all this, I'm not sure. But I also support it in principle.
Councilor Hugh?
I also would support it in principle, but what I was thinking about is to, hopefully this will work and that I can make this recommendation, being that I'm on the chamber board, but, refer it to the chamber for comment, and then perhaps they could distribute it through their membership and see what kind of reaction there might be, and, with the considerations that we have, because there are considerations that the people have brought forward. Other businesses do have those concerns that you spoke of, which is loss of parking, and if we allow one, then this is my application, I want to as well, and and I think we need to, as the CEO suggested, look at perhaps putting something in place or working towards having it in place for next year, rather than trying to rush and upsetting many people. Because we've got 4 letters of opposition. We have none that have expressed that they want it to happen. Unless they get a fair opportunity as well. There's only one that has indicated that. So that's my thought.
Well, I'm with Councilor Holland that we have to change the way we do business. And with respect to Councilor Leithwood, I think changing Front Street would be a really great idea based on many other communities that actually move to walking streets. I wouldn't say this if we hadn't worked so hard to get that parking lot on the Esso lands, which is not used. And I think part of the solution is, how do we get people to use that to park and spend the 2 or 3 minutes it takes to walk from there? We've got to make it easier to walk, or I don't know what it is. But I would really like to see Front Street become more pedestrian friendly, all the things. And I think the evidence is there. I also think it's an excellent opportunity for the chamber to weigh in on this at some level. I do agree that, everything's in place with Nelson having developed for their situation, which is a little different. I don't know whether, but, it's not like we have to reinvent the wheel here on this issue. So, would somebody like to make a motion? Councilor May.
I'd like to make a motion that staff develop an outdoor cafes and use of sidewalk and parking spaces policy for the village in conjunction with any amended or draft bylaws as required, as time permits. And further to that this initiative be forwarded to the Chamber of Commerce for comment.
Did you get that? Good. Further discussion?
Second.
Oh. Second by Councilor Hewitt. Further discussion?
Okay, so
Councilor Hewitt?
we're asking the public to comment, not the chamber, right? I mean,
Well,
the
I
chamber would be,
specifically asked that it be forwarded to the chamber, because I think they have the most at stake here.
but we need,
I think we can go on, through the website, we can invite public comment, and we're already getting it, whether we solicit it or not, so I certainly don't have any problem with people weighing in on this issue from across the community. It's not, I'm not trying to restrict the number of people that participate in the discussion.
well, that's the way that you would have given it the, sounded like you were just wanting input from the chamber. I mean, they're part of it.
Well,
but it
specifically,
needs to
I
be-
want them to be asked to comment.
Yeah.
Councilor Hewitt?
I just had a thought. The one wonder if we're a little premature in asking staff to do that when we haven't had received the comments yet. Having them do something working towards an action which we may not end up going with, depending on the public chamber commentary on the issue. It might be, why would we ask them to give their input if we've already made a decision to take certain action, which, would put work on staff that is not necessary if there is wholesale opposition to it.
Councilor.
I agree with Councilor Good. I'm struggling with, I see this as a pretty substantial hit on our staff time. And I don't want us to invest a lot of work in something that's not going to float by the community if the community is going to reject it. So maybe we're getting the cart before the horse a little bit by pursuing developing a policy that we don't know that the community has the appetite to engage in or endorse on. So maybe we need to step back and do more of a community consultation part.
In order to have community consultation, you have to have some kind of a policy to consult about. In my opinion, there has to be some type of proposal. I think this kind of fits into some of the language in the OCP. I think Neil is smart enough. He's not going to drop everything. I think if we can gather some information to be prepared to have a more informed discussion. You mentioned there's a lot of evidence out there to the contrary, and I think it would be useful to bring that forward. So I'm not expecting staff to drop everything they're doing. I think but I don't know, where are you at?
Just my preference. My preference would be to draft a policy with draft and large letters all over it, and have it ready for consultation with the business community once Water Street has been paved, because that will, in the parking lot there has been done, that has the potential to change a lot of perceptions about space in the downtown area. So if you do the consultation before that work's been done, you may get different responses from when after that work's been done, as compared to when after that work's been done. But that would only, so if I worked on a draft policy over the next little while, have it ready for you in the late summer, midsummer, to go out for comment once the work's been done out there. I think you could have a good conversation with the business community.
Makes a certain sense.
Councilor Hewitt.
I just want to ask what the motion is that's currently on the table, because it has not been amended at this point.
Basically, the staff recommendation with the basically changed to S-time permits and forward it to the Chamber of Commerce for comment. And if you're just talking the resolution right now, that wouldn't be a great deal.
Councilor Hall.
So would we amend this to eliminate the part in conjunction with amended our draft bylaws as required?
Well, they wouldn't get amended until the policy was going forward.
Okay, so you wouldn't necessarily be drafting amended bylaws as part of this. Okay, I prefer it to just be a streamlined, kind of a skinny proposal. I mean, I don't think it's that hard. Yeah.
Councilor Hewitt, did you have another comment here?
So do we just want to add the wording that to invite public comment after Water Street works have been completed? Just so we know when our timeline is.
Well, what I'm hearing is that's when the CAO is going to bring it out, so there won't be any consultation until he completes what he's going to do. After Water Street.
Okay. Are we happy with the current resolution? Any further discussion? Call a question. All in favor? Motion passes. Okay. On to 9C, travel request. Councilor Hall.
I'm going to asked him to get travel expenses to attend the Paul Point workshop, which is focusing on community communication, so that it's about getting community groups and organizations to share information in a closer way. It's more than apple pie, but I've seen the guy speak before. He's got good practical stuff, so I'd like to bring that back to council as far as, and I think it would support the role I'm doing. Sed's trying to do some outreach, so a lot of it's he's going to be discussing with topical with Sed to do some outreach.
I'll move that.
Moved by Councilor Leafwood, second.
Second for discussion. I just wondered, do you know where you are within your travel budget? You've still got lots of room. I know you've gone on a few things, so just wondered where you were at.
I believe it's because my expenses, in line with your expenses, allowing for attendance to AKBLG and particularly UBCM. UBCM, I believe, is about a $2,500 hit. So the regional district pays that for me, so I've got quite a bit.
Further discussion?
I don't think the CEO's going around.
Nope.
You'll get a bill.
Further discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Motion passes. And accounts payable in the amount of,
Excuse me.
oh, sorry.
There was a 9D.
Oh, 9D.
That's right.
Right. I'm sorry, I lost track.
Okay, so I'll move that the village, Castle sends a letter of condolence to the village of New Denver.
I'll second that.
Moved by Councilor Hewitt, second by Councilor Leafwood. Discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Motion passes. And accounts payable.
I'll move the accounts payable in the amount of $65,585.55 be approved.
Moved by Councilor Hall, second by Councilor Leafwood. Discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Motion passes. And the financial report.
I'll move that the variance report be received.
Moved by Councilor Hall and seconded by Councilor Lang. Discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Motion passes. And adjournment. Moved by Councilor. Oh, sorry, I didn't know whether you were tapping on your thing. Moved by Councilor Leafwood. Discussion. Call the question. All in favor? Motion passes. We're adjourned.
Do we get questions there?
It's public time.
Okay, well, stand up first. Yeah. Councilor Hall, how much is the amount that you're expecting to spend for the Paul Moore workshop?
It's in Castlegar, so it'll be about 50.57 times 200.
So about $120.
Yeah.
Is there a fee for the workshop itself?
Yes, $50.
Food?
No.
So the total amount you're going to be spending is going to be limited to $170?
Yes. Approximately.
Okay. Now, you've been to one of his workshops before.
Yes, at the Columbia Basin Trust. Yeesh, I can't remember what the conference was now. I have to look at my calendar.
About how long ago was that?
It was in April.
This past year?
I'm sorry. It would have been in early April.
Okay.
And he was speaking on. Hang on a second, I'll tell you. I'll give you some more details here.
Was it part of AKBLG?
Yeah, I think it. Do you have any KBLG on?
Yeah, but I don't remember that. But there was opportunities to attend different sessions
Yeah,
that overlap, so that doesn't mean that I didn't get to them all.
But while Jim's looking for this, I just want to comment that I think it's important for Kaslo and for councilors in particular, to be involved in the region, not just in the municipality. And we budget for that, and it's a really important part of getting the message out about Kaslo.
I understand.
Because, so we did set a budget for it, and I would expect councilors to utilize that budget, because I can't think of a councilor who doesn't promote Kaslo and get good ideas and get a different perspective and point of view on how to make our village more prosperous and function better by going to these things. Because if we just sit here and try and figure it out ourselves, given the current level of problems that exist out there, so I think that initiatives like this are worth taking forward. And when we budget for it, that's what we're budgeting for. We're budgeting to sell Kaslo. But anyway, did you find it, Jim?
You see, one of the questions I had during the financial time we had discussions is cuts have to be made. And so, as opposed to just jumping on one that you've already heard the guy and done these discussions, cuts have to be made somewhere. You guys can't keep pushing the taxes up and gaining more taxes while everyone else is going down. I mean, how is it that we're at the bottom of the pile of 16 of the Columbia Basin communities as far as average income for men or women? And so, you're just pulling more money out of the system, and I'm saying it needs to be extremely restricted and make them very tactical. And
that is tactical. That's
okay, but that's my follow-up question, was asking him what the person had spoken of before, and then what was the action point that you brought back to this community that multiplied that $170 and let's see a profit, some sort of revenue generation, something that makes that money come back here and not just be information that you're able to hold in your head, but that it actually culminates in something positive happening in Kaslo. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. Well, and Councillor Holland has to give a report to council to answer those questions. Maybe what would really be helpful is if, we had some sense of what that report should look like in a format, depending on a number of issues. So those are good ideas. How much employment would that create? What savings would occur to the village in the next budget session based on the knowledge gained at that seminar?
Exactly.
Yeah, so those are things that I'm sure would be taken under advisement. Certainly, Councillor Leithwood is pretty committed to...
Holland.
Well, I know that, but I mean, Molly's always asking questions about reports. I have a binder that's this thick. I put everything out there because to regurgitate this, I expect councillors to go to that binder and pull out of that binder all the things that I've identified that are good for this village.
Okay, I don't want to hog the time here. I do have one question going right to that. I believe Mr. Holland will go for now. Go to Molly. You said that there was some sort of potential liability for Greg to operate his motorcycle school up at the airport. Where did you get that information from?
Well, I just think that we spent a lot of time trying to maintain that airport.
Well, who did you consult, though? Is that just your thinking?
Yes, it is my
opinion. Or do you have
opinion.
a report somewhere that says there's potential liability in this?
That's my opinion.
Okay. And that's a problem here. Is we've got binders. We've got 3 or 4 reports on tourism down there because nothing is ever acted on. I mean, the last one I read is fantastic. It was took a year to produce. And that's where it stopped, with tens of thousands of dollars put into it. Just so you know, Greg did consult the motorcycle guy did consult the arena board. He mentioned that the last time he was here. They approved it. The difficulty is, I heard that.
Well, I'm on the arena board.
Well, he said...
And it hasn't come actually to
Okay,
the
he said he had talked to someone on the arena board.
No.
Okay, second thing was, he's running twice as many motorcycles as the previous person who operated up there. That's his difficulty. And he is wanting to bring people to Kaslo. He could much easier go to Nelson and do this at Selkirk College and probably fill the thing up quicker. But he's trying to bring people from Nelson And I was talking with someone downtown who did take the course when it was run at the arena, and they said there were two or three people from Kaslo. The rest of them came from outside of here. And they would come down here and eat and shop and all that sort of thing. That's what Mr. Dixon's part is to try and do with this. He's got every other community that he approached working. This one he's having difficulty with. I'm going to sit down and let someone else say that. Yes?
Yeah, last year we had a request for a driving school to be held at the airport, on the airport property while the airport was closed. We approved it, and it was an utter and complete disaster. The school never took place. There was a bunch of material moved around. We ended up having to clean up after the proponents. It really did, for myself personally, sour my appetite for creating extracurricular activities around the airport that aren't airport-related activities. And we got a fair amount of flack from the flying group saying, why are you doing this to our airport? Why are you constantly inviting people to use our airstrip for things other than landing and taking off planes? And it's a good point, you know, like, we're trying to bring our airport into the 21st century, and we're trying to do things to enhance its usefulness to the flying community. And personally, I'm just not that excited about motorcycles careening around the apron area when planes are parked there, and that's the way I feel about it. That's my opinion.
Well, a very brief comment from me. I had a hard time understanding if you're having a motorcycle school there. We have no schedule or prediction when a plane could land there or when a taxi into that area. If there's motorcycles there, it seems to be a major conflict to me to have somebody on a motorcycle with propellers winging around. I don't quite understand. He could end up scheduling a whole day of activities out there and have one plane land wanting to taxi into the apron. They would all have to skedaddle. You can't have a plane taxiing amongst motorcycles. So the conflict there is, it's not an ideal situation. If the airport was going to be closed, if we closed the airport, closed the apron area, and it became a designated use for vehicular traffic and not airplanes, then it might be workable. But I don't think anybody, even Transport Canada, is going to allow us to close a portion of the airport. So I see that as a very hugely conflicting use.
Well,
I didn't understand it.
On that point is, he's just want to use the area inside the gate where the hangars are, just because it's a big...
That's where the planes park.
I understand that, and that's what the NOTAM would do, would make people aware, and I asked him about that as well, because he talked to me, and I said I didn't think it was a great place to start, but anyways, he did, and he said we would very quickly just move all the cones off, and that's that. He says, I only need it for about a couple hours. That's all we're doing is just a couple of hours there, and then the rest is onto the roadway stuff. So I'm just...
Yeah, there's no predicting. I mean, if a plane landed, that would...
But the notice to the airman, that's what that is intended for.
But so we close the airstrip.
No.
Well, if a plane lands on the airstrip, he's got to go on the apron. He can't sit on a runway.
No, he comes through that gate into where the hangars are.
No, the planes. If a plane lands on the airstrip, it's got to go into that airplane parking area.
No, there's a button on the end they turn around, but they can if they're going to park. If they're going to stay in Kaslo, that's where they go park. You're correct.
That's all they do when they come here. They're not going to land and turn around and take off, fly away.
If they're a student pilot or something like that, but
okay.
Councilor.
There are activities that are restrictive within a certain proximity to the airport. So in the summertime, perhaps it's really dusty up there in that parking lot. So that may, impede a plane from landing as well. So it's not only a matter of just allowing them to do something. There are rules that we have to follow about what can and can't be. We can't have the road within a certain distance from the airport. So we haven't even looked into that part of it, like what would be Transport Canada's take on having a motorcycle school that close to an airport, an airstrip?
I'm sure Neil had looked at it. That's why he said the NOTAM would have to be posted. But again, the chamber probably has something to do.
Next.
I'm afraid to go. I'm afraid I'm going to be inappropriate if I start. Let me just think about it. Okay.
have kind of a three-part question, which will maybe segue into what you're going to ask. One, this one is directed, Molly, are you aware that I had a meeting with the Kootenai Lake Historical Society in November at Jillian Frosch's house? We spoke for 1 hour and 23 minutes. You can ask Bill Neal about that. Unfortunately, we missed that meeting. I also have an email from him saying, thank you very much. It is wonderful that the Chamber wants to work with us again, and we very much look forward to doing that. And we had a very long and extensive conversation. I haven't heard from anybody in the KLHS since, and they said they would get back to me. So I don't really think that it's fair to say that the Chamber has not tried very, very hard to work with KLHS. Especially with my history with KLHS, I felt that it was, you know, to me it's always been a shoe-in that the KLHS, the Chamber, and Council form a pyramid. Why it has never happened in 120 years is beyond my understanding, but it certainly does beg the question. So we do definitely want to work with KLHS in many ways, because the KLHS is not equipped to a lot of things, and to address Jamie's concern, one of the things that it is neither equipped for, nor does it do at all, is to promote the village, or promote commerce, or in any way advertise for Kaslo as a tourist destination, which, by the way, is in its mandate from BC Tourism, if you were to read that, which I can certainly send to you if you're so interested. So, to address those 2 points, we want to work with everybody. We want to work with the Arts Council, the Kootenai Lake Historical Society, the seniors, and yes, the village as well. This is really, if this did not become very clear in the report that was sent to you, then let me stress it here right now, on behalf of the Chamber. These points are all very, very, very true. Jamie, I have another question about monies. The reason it was a one-time ask was because we felt that as a chamber, as many nonprofits, there's only so much a group of volunteers can do. I mean, we all have businesses, we all have to work. That's just how it is. Therefore, the chamber is almost at a crossroads where we find ourselves that we just cannot come up with enough man-hours to perpetuate any more projects than we do. Consequently, we actually need somebody to help administer us. You guys would all be running around like chickens if you didn't have an administrator who said, okay, here's this paper, this has to happen, and only so much of that can happen on a volunteer basis. You've been on the chamber, you know this to be true. This is why we are looking for this position, and it's not in a small box. This position can be all-encompassing because it can represent other factions that don't have a voice, like the KLHS, like the seniors, and certainly like the Arts Council. Again, this really all comes down to the fact that what we want to put together next is a joint session where representatives of all of these groups can actually sit down and say, okay, what do we need to move forward with? This is what the Chamber would like to do. This is what the Arts Council wants to do. So consequently, the reason we came to Council with a one-time ask is to say, listen, if you can give us some PIN money, the Chamber will back the PIN money, and we can get CBT to go in. We actually now have some valid dollars by which we can go forward and actually put some serious projects in motion over the next 15 months. That was the full reasoning for that dollar value. Now the dollar value has been cut down, and that was why it was a one-time ask as well. Now the dollar value has been cut down as a recommendation, not sure by who, for $8,000, which I wasn't quite aware of the reason for, other than perhaps it was budgetary restrictions. Now the $8,000 is down to $5,000, and with all due respect to the whole council, I really don't see what council can anticipate we can possibly do with that in terms of going forward in the bigger picture. And it's a great sentiment that SEDS is working on another project, but again, with due respect, after 2 years of SEDS working on another project, I'm sorry, I've yet to see one come to any sort of fruition or even to be started as a project. And that's no ill will towards SED. It's just yet one more group that's volunteers that only have so much time, which is why we were looking for this position. So I guess the question that I'm asking out of all of that is, if we had, I believe Neil said slightly more than $8,000, why did we drop back down to 5? And what happens with the extra 3.5, if that's what was in the kitty? I was a little confused by the numbers that he said. Molly?
Okay, I just want to clarify that I didn't say that you hadn't consulted with the Kootenai Lake Historical Society. My condition is that you consult with them so that services aren't overlapped.
Okay, well, I think I just stated the case. That
Right, so you're explaining that to me, that's great. I was the one that made the recommendation for 8,000. I have thought about it a lot, and I mean, again, I've said every time, as we all have on council, we do support the initiative. But we do have a limited amount of money in our community development fund. We've had extra expenses this year. We have a very tight budget year, and we cut everything. And so when we started talking about $8,000, we had other things come up, like we had to put more money into fuel management. If we spend all of that community development money, we have no wiggle room for anything else. I mean, again, it's a great initiative that will benefit a lot of people, but so are other things that come up during the course of the year. And that pot of money allows us to do things with that. So if we end up spending it all, then we have nothing left.
So this really, rather than being community development money, this is actually discretionary miscellaneous money.
Well, yes and no. I mean, it's for community development.
So how does that apply to fuel funds then?
Because we needed to, there are criteria attached to what community development funds are used for. When we found out that we needed to have a little bit, put a bit more money into the fuel treatment, which is a benefit to the community, then we used some of those funds. So again, I think if we could, give you $15,000, that would be great. But I don't feel that we have that much money to give out when we have other things in the village that we use that money for.
Well, and we are all very well aware of the fact that everything comes down to the same answer. It's always about the dollars.
Well, it is, unfortunately. Yes.
So I was going to comment, sorry, if I
Go
could.
ahead.
For me, it's important that we have partnerships and that we spread the funding around. We've got, you're right, SEDS has 2 years of work invested in trying to move some activity forward on the groundwork around economic development, which by everyone that we're talking to is telling us it's important. So at this point, my concern was that if we cut short the funding, it's a matter of prioritization. SEDS has got 2 years invested in doing their work in order to try to move some of that work forward. Your proposal came in relatively late, and to drop something that already has 2 years worth of investment. Now, I don't know that meant we had to drop. That was my question in the meeting was, were we going to be sure to allow that the ongoing work is not jeopardized by taking on a new project? Because at some point you got to decide what projects you're going to do. There's a golden opportunity with SEDS there. That's a 3-way partnership that hopefully the village would participate in between Columbia Basin Trust, North Kootenai Lake Community Service Society, and if the village is in there too. So that's a 3. There's strength in having those 3 different organizations. I really appreciate the leadership of the North Kootenai Lake Community Service Society over the last 2 years. They've been an outstanding organization that's been able to move forward. They've got excellent staff. They got some of the most highly experienced people that we've ever seen there right now. And I would hate to see that get undermined. Even though this proposal is a great, fantastic proposal, there's hard decisions got to be made here. That we not undermine that project, that project stays funded to the extent that it's ready to go at. And unfortunately, because it happened a little late, we're at this crux. We don't know what the ask is going to be from those guys yet. We just had the meeting the other night. Louise was there where this is getting hashed out, and they're going to come back to us pretty quick at the next meeting with the ask and what needs to happen. I would hope that we can maintain the flexibility here so that if it comes out that we need X amount of dollars, that moves forward, because it's a really strong project. So that was my concern. I just didn't know, in my perfect world, if I could have deferred this till June 9th, I would know on June 9th that as maybe they don't need anything. Maybe it's all set, and then there's a bunch more money available to you guys. My concern was not to undermine that ongoing project at this point. That was what that was about.
I just want to say, last year, Councillor Lang and I asked for more money. This year, we asked for more money. So council has a struggle in supporting economic development, in my opinion. And I really believe that the key, and this is what I was saying to my colleagues in Christina Lake, looking at venture capital, is that we are dying. And if we don't find a way to stimulate the economy and bring prosperity to this community, it's death by 1,000 cuts, and we watched it happen at our hospital. So council struggles with this issue of, should they be leaders in economic development, or should they give little bits of money here and there to other individuals? And my whole focus for what's left of my term is economic development, increased prosperity, and investing money where it results in jobs and more viable businesses. But that isn't, and we elect councils who have varying points of view, and that's what kind of brings this discussion, so that the public have an opportunity to be involved and make decisions about where they want to go and how they're going to get there. But it hasn't been fun, I'll tell you. And I think council would agree. There's not a lot of agreement on what constitutes economic development and support for economic development in this community. And that's just the way it is.
Well, that's interesting, because you were quoted as saying in the Valley Voice that when asked by, I believe, Robert Abbey, what plans the village had for economic development, you said there wasn't any, and that various champions and, of course, the Chamber of Commerce will be carrying that forward. So I guess here you are saying, well, the Chamber's going to do it, but we're not going to help them, or we can't really. No.
Well, you're not hearing me. Last year, I went to council and said, we need $15,000 for the Chamber. Councillor Lang seconded that. This year, we went to council and said, we need $15,000 for the Chamber of Commerce. And then it ended up being $8,000. Now it's $5,000. I don't agree with that. I think that's wrong. That's the wrong direction. So get the message.
All right, so here's your other option. CBT will actually come in and help us fund this whole scenario if the council will recognize the fact that there is a financial asset in our culture and heritage in the area. And that was something that David Stewart from the Arts and Council approached the council on. And you didn't even have to buy in with dollars. Really, all you have to do is buy in on theory, with the possibility of coming in with $3,000 or so later, at which point the Chamber would pair up, and CBT was willing to come in with a fair bit of money. Molly.
So
anyway, I don't know how much longer. This would really be a good workshop, I think, at some point in time.
And if we would like to then say, if the Chamber were to put something together and say, listen, we need all these people at one table to hash this out, to try and figure this out, because somebody has to move forward with this. And really, is it council's position to drive economic development in Castle? Well, maybe it is, but are you set up for that? Probably not.
I think there are several definitions of economic development.
Without question.
Right. So, we try as a council to do what we can. We're paving Water Street this year. That's a $100,000 bill.
And that is wonderful.
So, I don't really see support as always being financial. So, I don't think $3,000 decides whether or not council supports arts or cultural. We do support the initiatives. It doesn't always have to be with dollars. So we have contributed $5,000 to the Chamber for their initiative, which, maybe next year we can put some more in. But for this year, this is our support that we can give.
Fair enough. So would you consider then going forward to give some validity to the fact that our cultural assets here have financial merit and actually put that into the OCP? Because if you were willing to do that and write a letter to that effect, with monies from the Chamber as well, CBT would actually come in with a fair size of money to help perpetuate our cultural and heritage and economic development. So I'm just throwing that out. I'm not asking you yes or no. I'm just saying, think about it.
I think,
Louise.
I just want to mention that we did have a really exciting planning session where you were invited. Susan was there. I wish you would have been there, Jimmy, and I wish you would have been there, Molly, because we did have representatives from the Historical Society, from the seniors, from who else? Everybody was there. There was a great cross section, and it was collaborative, and we worked together beautifully, and we came up with some really great strategies where we could work together. This is the direction we're going. When you are absent from these kinds of really essential meetings, you miss the essence of what we're trying to do. The essence of what we're trying to do is not to be competitive, but to be collaborative. And we're trying to walk that walk. As a chamber, we have a dynamic group that are moving forward. We've got some fresh ideas, and we're really trying to perpetuate, having communication and keeping those lines of communication open. That's what we're trying to do as a chamber. We're trying to work with the council. We're trying to work with the various community members and bring us together, and Area D as well. We want to bring it all together, because when everybody does bits and pieces, you can't achieve a lot. When we work together and try to share the load, but communicate what we're doing with each other, that's when there's synergy, and we can make things happen.
I don't think anyone on the council doubts that. And I don't necessarily see that by giving $5,000 or $8,000 or $15,000,
We can't.
doesn't think that's not going to happen.
But we can't we need some help. There's no
Well, we
way
did.
that people who have their own businesses, we all have our own businesses, we can't set all those things in motion. We can't form the connections that we want to form. We can't apply for the grants that we want. We need some help with that, and that's what that position was for. And you got to pay somebody to do that.
We all recognize that, and
It's
that's
just
why we
like
did
you
support
have-
you with.
right.
Yeah.
I know that when I joined the chamber, and I had a relationship with Linda before I joined the chamber. She used to say to me, she would love to work with this community, but there's so much dissension and there's so much ill will that she doesn't feel like investing in Castle. Well, she's seeing it being turned around. She's seeing that we're reaching out to each other. This is a good thing that we're trying to do here. This is not a negative thing. This is a very good thing. And it's going to benefit everybody if we try to work and reach out and work with each other. But when we set up barriers, everybody notices.
I don't know.
So I tell you what, guys, we usually, it's 15 minutes for public time, and I'm really glad you're here, so maybe it's 15 minutes each. But, this is a good discussion. I think that, and this is the democratic process, and I think there needs to be some type of informal, like you said, you had your strategy session. I unfortunately was double booked on that issue, but I think we've got to try to find a way to effectively get this vision of what we want for our community, because the vision is not clear in my mind. We have 4 letters opposing sidewalk patios, very vehement about it, and we got a parking lot that's empty. And I don't. Where's the middle ground here? We fought like hell to get that parking lot, and people aren't using it. But anyway, so these are the discussions I think that.
What's going to come out of the VRE work with North Kootenai Lake Community Service Site being the front person on this? That's really good stuff. It's going to come out. There's going to be deliverables coming out of that where the chamber and the businesses can participate in that, and through that, there's going to be some priorities identified. One of them might be exactly what you're trying to do. Where I'm at right now is to try to stay the course with that, make sure we can, because I think it's establishing a good groundwork. I know in the case of Linda LaFleur, there's been a lack of that kind of supporting documentation and work done at the community level, at the consultation kind of community level, in order to build a basis for moving forward. And I think that's some of the contention and things that happen is when people work across purpose, because we're operating our silos a little bit. So hopefully with this study, honestly, that was what came out for priority, is that we have some basis to move forward. You're going to be consultant, chamber consultant, business consultant, community consultant, and hopefully we'll come out of that. And then that becomes a place where you can go to the Linda LaFleurs and say, look, we've done all the work, we've done all the background, we've got all this, it's all built up. This is what indicated, maybe it's the chamber position. And then all the money gets thrown at that. But I'd really like to kind of complete this thing. Steads has really struggled trying to get to him. I just saw a little ray of light pop open the other day when North Kootenai Lake came into our meeting with working with Project Comeback and their resources around making this happen. So that kind of got me excited. I hope we can.
So can you please come to some more meetings?
Okay.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dan.